Welcome, Facebook live stream viewers. So happy to have you with me today. You're backstage with me on Change It Up Radio. I'm Paula Shaw, and sitting with me in studio today is my guest, Leslie Willis. Say hello, Leslie.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
And she's an amazing lady who has edited the book that you see in front of you there, which is called Writing After Life. It's a compelling book written by men who had been given life sentences, but were able to do what was necessary to attain their freedom. So we've this week. So please stay with us. We love having you here.
Who are leading the charge to make the world a better place. If you're ready to live a more exciting life, at home, in the workplace, and around the world, it's time to step out of your comfort zone and change it up. Now, here's your host, Paula Shaw.
Welcome to Change It Up Radio. I'm Paula Shaw, your host. Breaking work that is trying to make the world a better place, or we're bringing you information to help you cope better with change in your own life. Today, I have someone that falls in that category of doing groundbreaking work, and I'm excited to have you meet Leslie Willis, who will be with us in just a little bit. Leslie is the editor of a book called Writing After Life. And it is a book written by 4 former life sentence prisoners in the prison system. They are no longer in the system. They have been successfully rehabilitated and are now living on their own. And these are the stories in this book of how they did it. I'm calling this show today Conceive, Believe, Achieve. And that is the motto of a group called Rise Up Industries. And their purpose is helping guys and women. I think, Leslie, women as well? No, just men. Thank you. Helping men when they get out of prison to be able to come back into life and have work so that they can survive and not be among the statistics of too many that return to a life of crime because they don't know how else to survive out in the world. So this is going to be an amazing conversation with Leslie, who is doing work with these men. And by the way, I know many of you are familiar with the fact that I've shared on this show before that I am now committed to going into Donovan State Prison every Tuesday and working on a program that's called Brilliance Inside. And Leslie is one of the leaders of that program. So it's really with special feelings and love for this woman that I bring her on today to share about this book and what's being done with this book. So please stay with us for that. In the meantime, I think there's something else that we need to talk about because it's in every bit of news you're looking at these days, and it's a tragedy that we're all very familiar with. This is a person who certainly knew the meaning of the words conceive, achieve, believe. And that was Kobe Bryant, who was tragically killed along with his daughter and 7 other people last Sunday. And I think I want to talk about it because, as you all know, I am a grief specialist. One of my last books was Grief, When Will This Pain Ever End? And helping people deal with grief is a big part of the work I do as a life transitions coach. And right now, we have a nation, perhaps a world of mourners because something tragic happened. And when something happens like this kind of loss, it's especially difficult for people because it makes no sense. It's so tragic. It's so seemingly senseless. It's like we have no place in our brain to put it, to try to cope with it. And so it's a real hardship. I know I was talking to my son the other day, he's 32, and he was saying, wow, I'm just really having a hard time with this Kobe thing. And another client of mine in the LA area was actually doing work with him. And she was just saying, everybody is just stunned. You know, it's like, we don't know what to do. We don't know where to put this. We don't know how to cope. And that's one of the hardest things with this kind of loss. There's like no clear path to recovery. There are no answers as to why. You know, we can't say, well, they were in pain, they're in a better place now, or the kinds of things that we sometimes soothe ourselves with when we suffer a loss or a death. And it's especially hard when it doesn't seem like there's any way we can find to accept this loss. And of course, acceptance is the path that we have to eventually walk to be able to heal and go forward. But it's very hard to accept something that is shocking and makes no sense. You know, it kind of puts us in that place of, why, God? You know, what are we supposed to do with this? How do we cope? And I think that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because acceptance is a powerful, powerful healer, and it's very necessary before we can move to recovery. But the question is, how do we go to acceptance? How do we find that place within us? Because right now we just feel so sad. It just makes no sense. So in thinking about this and looking at it in my own life, because I know we all have had those moments where we've had some kind of a loss and we can't make any sense at it. We can't find a way to cope with it. I was thinking about my own life, and I remembered something that happened, oh my goodness, it had to be at least 10 years ago now, maybe longer, but there was a death of a child of a very dear friend of mine they were the family of my son's best friend. And there had been issues, you know, sometimes childhood, we think everything's going great, and then in those teenage years, something goes astray. And the older brother, who is a dear friend, had gotten himself in with the wrong group. And one night, his younger brother went with him, and this gang cut in on another gang's gathering, a party, and there was a shooting, and the younger brother was shot. And when I went to that funeral where the parents were, the mother was just stunned and unable to really even speak. The father was just weeping, wailing. It was really, truly one of the most painful funerals I've ever gone to. And when I left, I was so torn apart myself. I turned to a friend of mine. I called a friend. Her name was Tammy Miller, and she was the assistant pastor at my church. And I was actually quite angry because this whole thing was so upsetting. And I'm sure many of you were feeling a sense of anger as well about what's happened to Kobe. And I called Tammy and I said, "You're always telling me that right in the middle of everything is God. Tell me how God is in the middle of this." And she said to me, "You know, sometimes we can't see it. Sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes we don't know. But we have no idea whose life might have been changed by this incident. What young person is tempted to join a gang who now won't? Or what young person will be more careful about where they take their siblings or what they expose their younger siblings to. We don't know what lessons have been learned by the adults involved in this, but we have to trust and we have to have faith that on some level that maybe we can't see and that maybe isn't obvious to us now, that some kind of good will come out of this. I know myself, just in doing research on what happened with Kobe Bryant, I saw a piece that was talking about a safety system that might have avoided this thing happening, that helps the vehicle know where they are in relationship to land, but it's not required in helicopters. Well, maybe that will change. Maybe that requirement will change. Maybe somehow other lives will be saved as a result of what happened here. I don't know. I wish I had the answers. I wish I could give you a 1, 2, 3-step formula for how to accept this and how to feel better about it and how to go forward. But like all grief, there is no real formula. You know, we all have to find whatever helps us heal, whatever helps us feel better, and then just keep working with that in our own life. Sometimes it's just a daily ritual of prayer or meditation. Sometimes it's just going for a gratitude walk and being so grateful about the beauty around us or about the circumstances in our own lives. Sometimes it's saying prayers for the people who are suffering right now in this particular situation. I know the Tibetans have a ritual, a policy that they follow, that when someone dies, everyone gets very busy saying prayers because they believe those prayers will lift that being to heaven. And so maybe we all just gather together and we send our love and our prayers to the families who are suffering in this situation right now. And don't forget to send love and prayers also to yourself if you're somebody who's hurting about this situation now. So I think in closing this segment, I'd like to just take a minute to be silent and for all of us to be silent. And let's send that love and those prayers to everyone who needs them right now. Thank you. And after this break, we'll be back with Leslie Willis, who's doing some beautiful work that I can't wait to share with you. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more Change It Up with Paula Shaw on AM 1170, The Answer.
Hi, Paula Shaw here. I'm so delighted to share with you that LifeWave has become our newest sponsor on Change It Up Radio. My family and I all use their tiny wearable patch technology, and the results are life-changing. My sister had lupus for over 20 years and has never slept well. Now she does. My mom's frozen shoulders simply went away. My favorite is the age-reversing X39, a patch engineered to activate stem cells. Yeah, it's true. They really work to improve how you look, feel, perform, and heal. LifeWave patches use a patented form of phototherapy, using frequencies of light to safely boost health and wellness at the cellular level with no drugs. Learn more online by visiting lifewave.com. That's lifewave.com.
Hi, I'm Kelly Klein of One Trust Home Loans, Loan Coach Kelly. A while back, my business was in a slump, and it triggered a lot of self-doubt and fear, and it even had me questioning if I'd made the right career choice. So I booked a session with Paula Shaw, and after hearing my predicament, she explained that when we get into negative, self-sabotaging thinking, and we're being run over by our limiting beliefs, it's almost impossible to create positive outcomes. She helped me clear those destructive thoughts and beliefs using her cutting-edge energy psychology techniques. Not only did I feel a whole lot better after the session, but within 2 weeks, I had 7 loans in my pipeline. I was so glad that I went to see Paula Shaw. And you should too. It really changed my perspective on life, business, and now my business is going great. You can reach her at 626-864-0756. That's 626-864-0756. 626-864-0756. Or check her out at paulashaw.com. That's paulashaw.com.
Welcome back to Change It Up. Now here's your host, Paula Shaw.
Welcome back to Change It Up Radio. You're here with Paula Shaw, and in studio with me today is Leslie Willis, the editor of a book called Writing After Life. And let me tell you a little bit about her and this wonderful work this woman does before we start chatting with her. As I mentioned in the last segment, Leslie and I are actually working together now in a program called Brilliance Inside at Donovan State Prison. And I have to tell you, it's one of the highlights of my life. I had to miss yesterday, or was it the day before, and I just felt the ache. It was really hard not to be there.
It is.
So Leslie created this program with a couple of other people, and one of them now is off to in Thailand working in the Rotary Peace Project. You remember her, Mariette Formeau. She was on our show before. And Jen, what's Jen's last name?
Myers.
Jen Myers is going to be on a show in the future. She's also working with us, and the contribution these two women make is amazing. But Leslie Willis has a BA in Global Studies and Sociology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a master's in Social Innovation from the University of San Diego. She also has a certificate in Nonprofit Management from Duke University. The woman has spent some time in school.
Just a little bit.
Yes, a little bit. But what we're talking about today is she's the editor of Writing After Life, Stories from Those Who Served a Life Sentence, a book of true stories written by formerly incarcerated individuals about their childhoods, transformations in prison, and the challenges and rewards of receiving a second chance at life. I love the whole message of all of that. Leslie also believes that stories have the power to transform our perspectives of the world and help us build greater understanding and human connection between the people and the realities within it. And I have seen this woman actually do that. I've seen her in action. So welcome, Leslie. I'm so happy you're here.
It's a pleasure to be here today.
Oh, my goodness. So tell us, first of all, how did you come to be involved in this project? Because I forgot to mention, maybe I'll let you mention the participation of Rise Up and all of that. Would you tell them a bit about that? Because those 3 words, conceive, believe, achieve, their motto is what I named the show today, because I think those words are so powerful and for all of us. But the men we're talking about today, Kobe Bryant, who I just talked about, and the men that we're talking about in your book, really, truly found the power of conceive, achieve, believe, conceive, believe, achieve. So tell us about the project and how you got involved.
Absolutely. It started when I was in my master's program. I was doing a group project with 2 of my close friends on gang recruitment tactics, a topic I had never really explored. But through that project, we did some first-person interviews, and I just became inspired by the stories, specifically the desire of these individuals who are now ex-gang members, wanting to give back to the community, to break those cycles, to help prevent today's youth from being involved in gangs and following, the lifestyle that they did.
Yes.
And so I wanted to learn more, and that's when I got connected with Rise Up Industries. So it started very organically. I didn't really have a clear vision of how I wanted to contribute to the organization or what my role would be. And that's what I think is so beautiful about the end product,
Yeah.
is I was able to sit down with the employees of Rise Up Industries who are interested in participating and co-create together what it was we wanted to do.
Would you pause for a moment and tell everybody what is Rise Up Industries
Absolutely.
all about? And are they a nonprofit?
They are a nonprofit.
Okay.
They're based in Santee, so not far from us here.
Right.
They are a workforce reentry nonprofit. So they employ formerly incarcerated individuals, and they offer comprehensive services. So it is an 18-month work training program. They teach all the individuals to become CNC machinists, a very lucrative career. But they also provide other services. They help with case management. They do various forms of therapy. They assist in whatever ways are necessary. Everyone has a mentor as well to help with things like, how do I go to the doctor's office? How do I get an ID? How do I get my driver's license? Things that you and I may never have to think about, but when you've been in the prison system for 20, 30, 40 years, cell phones didn't exist then. Technology has changed.
Good
So
point.
many things in our society have changed.
Yes.
And that's one of the challenges when individuals, when they've done the internal work, now they have to re-enter our society. There are all of these additional challenges. But Rise Up is able to provide a lot of services, those wraparound services, to help their individuals be successful out
I
in society.
understand that one of the problems, too, is you now have this prison record kind of haunting you. Like you get asked in job applications, have you ever been incarcerated? That sort of thing. So I think it's wonderful that I imagine that what Rise Up is training men to do is work that they will be accepted into doing, even though they have spent time in prison. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So the book features 4 authors, and I am very proud to say that all 4 of them successfully graduated Rise Up Industries 18-month program and are all working in CNC machine shops throughout the San Diego area now.
Oh, how fabulous.
So they do help with the employment after their training program as well.
And so tell us a little bit about the stories, the people. Are we allowed? Well, I guess since it's in the book, we're allowed to share the names of the men who contributed. There were 4, correct?
Certainly.
Tell us who they were and how did it impact you to be involved with these men?
That is such a big question. To be honest, with working with these 4 men and, as you mentioned, working inside the prison itself, I am constantly blown away by the humanity I experience and the ability, the resilience is probably the best word to put it, of these individuals to go through everything they've gone through and still be able to to become a positive person and to have that sense of hope that they can keep moving forward. And despite all of these hurdles and roadblocks and, challenges that society places upon them, that they're still able to hold their heads up, say, I am not who I was before.
Right.
I have done bad things, but I'm not a bad person.
One of the things that impacts me every time I go into the prison in our program is that very thing. What quality human beings these men are. If I met them anywhere else and didn't know anything about them, but just interacted with them, I would say they were some of the kindest, wisest, most intelligent men I've ever met in my life. They're incredible.
They truly are. And that touches on one way that my experience working with them has truly impacted me. Last year in 2019, I was laid off from a job that I felt very strongly about. I was very passionate about the work. And so, my instincts were like, what now? My life is flipped upside down. But as I started processing those experiences and really looking inward and saying, maybe this is instead an opportunity for me to really put myself out there and to follow my passions, the things I've been really strongly wanting to do and just haven't done yet. And I realized that those lessons and the process I was going through with myself were lessons I had learned inside prison. It's what I had seen the individuals working through together in the groups. We always start those opening circles in prison with an opportunity to share. And so we'll often hear the stories about, the challenges from the week or the celebrations from the week. And organically other individuals in the circle will start offering advice and feedback and sharing their experiences that connect.
What struck me a couple of weeks ago was one of the leaders shared a difficult thing she was going through. And it was interesting because it was very brave of her to open up about this, but it opened all of us up on such a profound level. I mean, the power of true, honest, intimate sharing is mind-boggling to me. I mean, I see it every time I'm in there. And sometimes I'm also so impacted by how positive they are. And a lot of the guys we're working with, they are lifers. And yet they're so positive. It's like within the community that's available to them, they are striving to be the best human beings they can be. And I don't think that can be said for everybody on the outside. I mean, the lessons that they seem to have mastered are so impactful. So impactful.
It's so true. And to the point you just made, we may be free to go wherever we want, but to some degree, we're all locked inside of prison. Perhaps that prison is in our mind. Perhaps there are physical walls surrounding us. But to overcome those prison, whatever that prison is for ourselves, is such a powerful and rewarding experience when we're able to do it.
That is a huge statement. And I think there's so much truth in it, Leslie. We're all in some kind of a prison. And I would say probably the majority of the time, it's a prison of our own creation. And we could break out of it if we would do what the guys in Donovan do, which is share their truth. Tell somebody they're hurting or express what they're going through so that you can receive encouragement or wisdom or help from somebody else. That's a huge point. Wow, thank you. When we come back from this break, I want to talk some more about the origin. What happened in childhood to so many of these guys that had them end up where they are. All right, we'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more Change It Up with Paula Shaw on AM 1170, The Answer.
If you could rebuild your health on a solid foundation, would you do it? Do you have health issues that doctors just can't get to the bottom of, and all they do is prescribe pills to lessen your symptoms? Would you like a better way? Certified FDN practitioner Desiree Lawn founded Autoimmune Health Freedom because she struggled with health issues from childhood that could not be explained. Today, she lives a vibrant life, free of aches and pains and full of energy to enjoy activities with her family. The life you would like to live. How did she do it? Autoimmune Health Freedom has the tools you need. For a free discovery session, call 858-248-1657 or go to autoimmunehealthfreedom.com. That's autoimmunehealthfreedom.com. Yes, you can feel better again. You can rebuild your health. You can have the life you want. Call 858-248-1657.
Desiree Lawn is not licensed by the state of California as a healing arts practitioner.
Is living in today's fast-paced world making you feel stressed and out of balance? Are anxiety, sleeplessness, depression, lack of focus, or weight gain robbing you of your relationship and your energy? If you're ready for change, you need to call Paula Shaw. Paula helps you identify and eliminate self-sabotaging thinking and behavior. Using a wide variety of mind-body techniques, she provides her clients with the most effective processes for their specific needs. To book a session with Paula, call 858-480-9234. That's 858-480-9234.
Welcome back to Change It Up. Now here's your host, Paula Shaw.
Welcome back to Change It Up Radio. I'm Paula Shaw, and in studio with me today is Leslie Willis, the editor of a profound book called Writing After Life. True stories written by 4 men who were given a life sentence but are now out of prison living in the real world. It's a powerful book. And, Leslie, one of the things that really struck me in reading the first story, what was his name? Johnny, was it? Johnny. Is the horrible, horrible, heinous things that happened to him in his childhood. His parents being on drugs and alcohol, and his father beating him almost on a daily basis, so that he got to a place where the streets were refuge. It was a place to live. Is this a common story? Is this one that you hear very much with guys who are in that kind of situation in prison?
Unfortunately, it is. And I think, various pieces of it are something we can all connect to. But childhood plays a huge role often in where individuals end up.
Yes.
And the home beatings, the drugs and alcohol, the empty cupboards, going to bed on an empty stomach.
Yes.
These are stories that are definitely in the book, as well as, we hear at Donovan. And the reality of turning to the streets to find that refuge, as you said, to find a place of belonging. I think that's something we as humans naturally desire, especially as, we're 8, 9, 10, into our teenage years.
Yes.
Seeking. And so, there's also interesting stories, though, that, the childhood, I've heard a story from the inside, there's one individual chose the route of the gangs and life on the streets, whereas his brother, who grew up in the same living environments, instead chose college and continued on. So it's not everything. There's a lot that, even I don't understand. But the fact of the matter is, what I hear very frequently is that one thing that is incredibly important to help break these cycles of incarceration and recidivism is having a supportive network, whether it's a single person or a group of people that will be there for you and guide along the way.
Yes. And that's such a great point you make. It's just like in any given family, right? One sibling has a certain version of how mom and dad were, and the other one has a different version. And it also, I think, depends a lot on the makeup of the person. Some people encounter adversity, and it makes them more determined to live the opposite when they grow up. And then other people get sucked into it. Like one of the guys in our program, I remember when he shared his story, his father was an alcoholic who would come home and be violent with his mother. And even though he was filled with rage and frustration that as a small child, there was nothing he could do, he ended up following the path of his father. I don't know that he was beating anybody, but out in the streets, eventually he was. But he turned to the alcohol and the drugs. So, it's very tricky. And my genetic researcher friend, Colby Carr, would say it's because we all have different genetics. And our genes don't just determine how we look. Our genes, we also have the epigenetics of our ancestors. And what we also get passed down to us is how they responded to life. So some people respond to adversity with determination that they are going to be different and their life will be different, and it is. And other people, I think, are just so devastated by the pain of it that they end up turning to something to ease that pain. And sometimes that is drugs or alcohol or gambling or sex or something that isn't productive. And that's the sad part, because I believe, and I'm certainly seeing it to be true in Donovan, everybody's born beautiful, with a beautiful heart and a beautiful spirit. But unfortunately, some of us are really shaped by the environment we live in and the pain that we experience. Have you found that to be true in the work you're doing?
Absolutely. And, one thing I find so fascinating about, the human spirit is its capacity to change.
Yes.
And that even though we are products of our environments and of our past, we can still overcome that. And as we're seeing in Donovan and with these stories, that yes, these individuals have done some atrocious things, but they're more than that.
Yes.
And there's that will to change and to become a better person. And, although we can't undo what we've done in the past, we can break the cycles so that others don't go through the same things and experience the same pain and life challenges.
Right. And I think it's a beautiful thing that we're seeing in this work we're doing in Donovan. that given the right opportunity and the right environment and the right support, as you said, these men are able to find that beautiful part of themselves that maybe they haven't been in touch with for a long time, that died a terrible death in their teenage years when they decided that being tough was better than being real or being vulnerable. Not a good thing out in the street, I would think.
Or in prison. But,
right.
That's part of the challenge that individuals such as the 4 in the book had to overcome to really just commit to their resolve to change.
Yes. Was there one story that impacted you more than others, or were there any of these men that you got to know on a level that it really had impact on your own life?
I mean, there are so many so many stories that I could mention just from these 4 individuals that, throughout the whole process, we really grew close together. It started, my first thought was, who am I to come in here and to collect, why would you share your story with me? Who am I? But through developing a relationship and trust and being authentic and genuine and genuinely interested, I felt we created a space for the individuals to take ownership of their own stories. And so rather than society or somebody else telling them what their story is, they were able to define it for themselves. And so through that whole process, I started opening up and sharing parts of my life and inviting them to my ultimate Frisbee games or to swing dancing lessons. And they would come. And I think, this is kind of going off of your question, but what really showed me how powerful the impact one person can have is when I graduated from my master's project. My parents were unable to fly across the country to join me. And, I knew there was a possibility that they wouldn't be able to make it. My dad just had surgery. But I was sad. I wanted them to be there. But right away I knew, I'm inviting my Rise Up Industries family. And 4 of the individuals who worked there came to my graduation ceremony, sitting up in the nosebleeds, just cheering with bouquets of flowers, and then coming down closer and just, you could hear them across the entire stadium. But it just, my heart just swelled that day. It was, they are family. And it's because, we all allowed ourselves to be open to possibilities and to find our common humanity through the sharing of stories.
So beautiful. So how did the process actually work? Did they craft the stories with you? Did they write stuff and then brought it to you and you all worked through it and edited and that kind of thing? What was the process?
Great question. So we co-created the whole idea together. And it really started out with, what are the broad general stories we want to share? And then I brought various themes or exercises to start pulling those stories out of them. And so there are many stories, many exercises that we did that didn't make it into the book or anything. But again, it was all about doing it together. And there was no way I could script their stories. And a couple of the stories, then there kind of came out at the very tail end of the project. But they were so powerful that we knew we needed to include them in there.
I think there needs to be a Writing After Life Volume 2. Because
we've thought about it.
These stories are so impactful. And, one of the things you and I have talked about, Leslie, is many people have this sort of stereotypical idea of what a prisoner is like as a human being. And that certainly has been blown out of the water for me since I've been in the prison working with the guys. But one of the things I think this book will do is help people see these men as human beings rather than as just the label of former prisoner.
Absolutely. And, that's one of the most powerful thing about stories is you don't have to, be in prison to experience the stories and to feel a connection with somebody that you've never met before. As I mentioned earlier, I do believe in the power of stories to change our perspectives and to really build connection. It's how we build empathy and compassion for each other. It's, again, how we connect. And so one of the goals of the book was to bring, our stories in general, is just to connect us despite physical distance or having different experiences. It's
That's huge. You know, in my in one of the books I wrote, Saying the Right Thing When You Don't Know What to Say, one of the things I talk about is it's very hard for people to have conversations, difficult conversations, or if the circumstances are difficult, it's hard to have conversations. And one of the reasons is because we all grew up in a different home, in a different way, with different parents, with different ideas about what's cool and what's not cool. And so if you grew up in a very conservative family where it was always stiff upper lip and we don't cry in public, and I grew up in a family that wails and screams and cries and carries on, it's hard for you to have a conversation with me that's meaningful because I'm not doing it the way you were taught it should be done. So when we come back from this break, let's talk a little bit about bridging those differences and being able to connect to each other as human beings. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more Change It Up with Paula Shaw on AM 1170, The Answer.
Jack Gutman survived World War II and then returned home to the hardest fight of his life with PTSD and alcoholism. Now at age 93, he's a businessman and comedian, sharing his message of recovery and hope in his new book, One Veteran's Journey to Heal the Wounds of War, helping our heroes and anyone who has experienced PTSD find happiness again. Get Jack Gutman's new book, One Veteran's Journey to Heal the Wounds of War, at Amazon.com. Or to order a signed copy, call 714-525-4954.
For those looking to improve their lives, there's nobody better to turn to than Paula Shaw. Paula helps people regain successful lives by identifying and eliminating self-sabotaging behavior using a multitude of mind-body techniques to identify and resolve their core issues. Working with a wide variety of healing modalities, she provides her clients with the most effective process for their specific needs. To book a session with Paula, call 858-480-9234. That's 858-480-9234.
Welcome back to Change It Up. Now here's your host, Paula Shaw.
Welcome back to Change It Up Radio. And I am delighted to be in studio today with Leslie Willis, the editor of a profound book called Writing After Life. By the way, Leslie, I've forgotten to ask you, how can people get a hold of this book if they'd like to have their own copy?
It's available on Amazon.
Great.
So if you just search by the book title or my name, it should come up.
All right. Writing After Life.
Mm-hmm.
God bless Amazon. It makes everything so accessible, and it didn't used to be that way. When I wrote my first book, Chakra's The Magnificent Seven, I literally had to walk from bookstore to bookstore with books, seeing if they would like to carry it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's so much easier.
It's a little different now.
It is. So, Leslie, this book, Writing After Life, is going to be used in our program, Brilliance on the Inside. And by the way, I think it's important to tell everybody that this particular program has also put on two TEDx events at Donovan State Prison. And they were extremely well received and highly rated. And who did all the work on those programs?
It was a team. We call them our core team. They are Donovan residents, so it's our inside team that really makes all of the decisions possible, from speaker selection to theme of the event to what lunch is going to be served, the number of people in the audience. And then there's a even much smaller team of volunteers on the outside who will pull in the rest of the logistics that cannot be done from within inside prison itself.
Beautiful. And so now you're going to take this book, and it's going to be the central focus of some work that's going to be done with our group. And would you share with us what that's going to be all about?
Certainly. Well, again, with the power of stories, we are currently running our second book club inside Donovan State Prison with Writing After Life. This one is with our core team of the Brilliance Inside individuals that have helped in the past. The group has helped in the past with the TEDx event. And so what we're doing now is creating a discussion guide to go along with the book, so that they're not just stories, but there's actually a guide on, what are those social issues that should be gleaned from these stories? What are the themes? How can today's high schoolers connect to vulnerability and connecting with your emotions, and what's the response? Do I choose violence or do I choose peace?
Beautiful.
So really pulling out some of those questions from the book so that if schools or church groups or, our everyday person picks up the book, that there's some additional guidance that they can, gain from reading the stories.
Right. Oh, that is such a beautiful idea, because these guys have lived it and they know the places. There's a book concept. I believe we talked about it in a meeting with Dr. Greenwald, where there actually are books. I can't remember what they call them. Maybe you remember, where you're reading, and at a certain point, there's a choice to be made. And if you choose sort of the left road, then you skipped a page, whatever, and now there's a different outcome. If you choose the right road, you keep reading in this particular vein. So I think that's such a beautiful concept, because it's life. Because at every moment, we have a choice. And we're either going to take one path or take another, or respond to life in this way or that way. And I think what's going to be so rich in our group in working with this book is some of the men have taken that path to the left and it didn't work out so well. And maybe others took a different path at one point and it worked out for a while, but then at a different point, something went wrong and ended them up incarcerated.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we're constantly making decisions in our everyday lives. And for some people, our frame of reference is more narrow or broader.
Right.
But there's always those decisions to be made. And the culmination of them all put together is where we are today.
Yes.
In each of our individual lives.
One
There's a lot of power in that, indeed.
Absolutely. And one of the things that always really tugs at my heart when we're working with our group is so many of them made the mistakes that got them incarcerated when they were just 18 or 22 or 24. And that determined what's going to happen to them for the rest of their life. And it just breaks my heart, because how many of us did really stupid things at that age? I know, I'm guilty as charged. And yet I didn't have to have an outcome, as severe as what these men are dealing with.
When we were discussing the book this past Tuesday, one of our men mentioned, we wrote it up on the board, we're all just one act away from prison.
Oh, that's so
And,
true.
we've all done things that we regret or wish we hadn't done. But we're not defined by it, usually.
Yes.
And yet, oftentimes, the individuals inside prison are being defined by the worst thing they've ever done. And even when they try to overcome that, when any of us try to overcome that, sometimes there are these additional barriers pushing back against us, making it even harder to do that. And that's, a huge challenge for those who are experiencing incarceration.
I love the way you put that we've all made mistakes, but we're not usually defined by them. Because that's exactly what happens in that moment, that you, whether you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol or rage or whatever it is, you shoot somebody or you steal something or whatever you do, that moment does define the rest of your life. And most of the time, we all get, what do they call that when you get another chance? Well, in golf, they call it a mulligan, but there's other terms, when you get another shot, when you get another chance. But so often for people, that moment is it. There's not another shot after that. However, what I've learned is through programs like the ones we're involved in, Brahman Kiri also has a program called Freedom from the Inside at the same prison. I participated in that. If even within prison, there's choice that the men have. They can work on those programs. They can take college classes, which I had no idea until I started working in there. There are churches that come in and do beautiful programs. I think this is such an important thing. And one of the things it's made me so clear about is rehabilitation is not about punishment. I think true rehabilitation has to stem from love. Does that ring true for you?
Most definitely. There's a Martin Luther King quote, hate does not drive out hate. Only love can do that.
Yes.
And there's so much power in that. If all we know is hate and we respond with hate, it's just going to breed more hate. But as soon as love is in there, there's an alternative way.
Yes.
And, unfortunately, a lot of the individuals I've worked with are, in childhoods, they don't recognize love. They don't see it in their lives. And, maybe that's a factor that leads them to make certain decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But the programming inside prison is huge in that transformation process. And, that's something that I think going back to love, is something I think we all have the ability to give in so many different capacities. And, I would always encourage individuals to become involved in a program if they feel so called, to give that love to somebody. We never know how our words, our actions, our hearts are going to impact somebody else. But it does.
Yes.
It really does. And so
it's huge. I my former training is in the area of energy psychology. So I come from very, very clear belief that everything is energy, and love is an energy. And when you feel it, when you have it, like when we sit in circle, what I'm very clear about is nobody's there judging anybody else. We're all just grateful to be there. And so that creates this energy of love and connection. And I see miraculous things happen there. I've been leading therapy groups for 28 years, and I've seen vulnerability and opening up on a level I've never seen before in that circle in Donovan. Now, I want to credit you and Jen and Mariette for creating that culture, for creating that safe space, because if that didn't exist, we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing. But I feel so blessed that I was able to walk into that and see this amazing unfolding. What I was kind of thinking when you were saying this is maybe for some of these men, because they weren't affirmed, love wasn't mirrored for them as children. They didn't feel it. Like Johnny mentioned in his story, the people around, the neighbors, the school, these other people knew he was being beaten, and they didn't take any action. So he didn't feel loved. He didn't feel anybody cared. So he hardened himself, because apparently love is not very useful if it's only going to make you hurt. And I think some of these people come to that sort of a place in their own hearts and minds. Have you seen that?
Definitely. I mean, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah, great line. It's true.
And, sometimes we seek, or we act out in certain ways because we're seeking something that we're not receiving.
Yes.
And, subconsciously, that's often love and that sense of belonging.
So often, yes.
And that's why I feel it's so important to express that when given the opportunity. And it's why I work inside the prison. It's why I worked at Rise Up Industries, to share these stories so that other people so that we can all understand the trials and tribulations of others, to build that level of empathy and understanding so that we can come together as a society and as people.
We are all blessed that you believe what you believe, and that you have lived the life you've lived and taken the actions you have, because I've seen firsthand you're doing amazing things, Leslie, and I'm so delighted you took the time to be with us today, because I think you've shared something really important with everybody, many important things. If people want to reach you, can you give them an email address where they can do that? And let's also give them the website for Rise Up Industries.
Great. Yes, I can be reached at Leslie Willis at sandiego.edu. And the website for Rise Up Industries is riseupindustries.org.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being with us.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you to all of you for being with us today. Don't forget, you can hear Change It Up Radio on Sunday evenings at 9 o'clock on AM 1170, The Answer, and 96.1 FM. And we're on every major podcast platform. So find us, review us, subscribe to us. We want you. Stay with us, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Change It Up with life transitions expert, speaker, and best-selling author, Paula Shaw. Join the Change It Up movement with Paula Shaw as we explore topics that inspire, welcome change, and create a new kind of conversation. To learn more about Paula, how to be a guest on the show, and sponsorship opportunities, visit changeitupradio.com. Whether you're feeling happy, sad, mad, or glad, it never hurts to change it up.
So thank you, Facebook live stream viewers, for being with us. Please share this show with your friends. Share it with other pages, because we want everyone to know what's possible when we bring programs based in love to people in prison. No matter where they've been or what they've done, it is possible for them to redeem their lives, rehabilitate, and go out in the world and be who they should have been in the first place. So, Leslie, thank you so much. And if you would like to say any last words to the Facebook audience, please do.
Thank you all for tuning in, and it's been a pleasure being here with you today.
All right, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same station. Take care. Have a good week. Bye-bye.